Hi, I'm Tyson.
And I'm Mike. And we argue with dragons.
Welcome, listeners. This is Arguing with Dragons, a podcast where we find something nerdy and we argue about it.
Hello.
We're your hosts. My name's Tyson.
I'm Mike.
So, Mike, this is our first episode. Are you excited?
It is. Yeah, sure.
Is this your first podcast, Mike?
No, but you already knew that.
I did, but our listeners didn't.
All three of them, huh?
All three of them. Tell us about your podcasting experience, Mike.
All right. I was on a rather short-lived podcast called The Fresh Squeeze, where we just talked about random shit. Started off as a topical thing, and we did our absolute damnedest to make it as apolitical as possible, considering we started this around about the end of the current president's first term.
Oh,
so as not to name names, but
He who
prior
shall not
to the
be
previous guy's first term.
Fair enough.
Yes. So we started off just talking about this, that, and the other thing. Occasionally, if we found a topic that would interest us, we would deep dive on it for about a week in preparation, and then we would hop on, chat about it for an hour, hour and a half, and then just kind of toss it up on YouTube. Now, we were neither myself nor the host, co-host, were at all familiar with podcasting. We did not know what we were getting into, and frankly, I don't listen to podcasts all that much, so we both kind of were green, as it were, but at the same time, we brought to every conversation passion, because a lot of the stuff we talked about were things that we liked, so there's that.
That word, passion, I love it.
So it can mean a lot of things, you know?
Yes, it can. And
it's also a type of fruit.
So listeners, our expectations for this podcast, we're going to have fun. We're going to find nerdy subjects. We're going to beat them to death when we're going to argue about them. We're going to have fun with them. And we're going to get your feedback. We're going to find out what you are passionate about as a nerd, why you're passionate about it, and then we're going to beat the hell out of that too.
So grab your Mountain Dew and Doritos. I got mine.
Listen to that. He actually cracked a Mountain Dew on air, ladies and gentlemen. That's amazing.
Well, it's store's own brand, but at the same time, it's delicious.
Hey, being a nerd, it's expensive.
Yeah, you're right.
Got to cut corners where you can, my friend.
Indeed, sir.
All right, so this is my first podcast ever, and a little bit about me. I'm a nerd, obviously.
Hey, me too.
I manage a retail store by day. I have a DJ business that I still play around with and have fun with. But in all honesty, my real passion is nerdy stuff and just, getting out there and finding out what makes people tick. Those are my favorite things.
Absolutely. I'm a debt collector by day and a not so closeted nerd at night. I tend to just kind of live vicariously through pixels and storylines written by other people.
Fair enough. Yeah. So why are you a nerd?
Well, I'm a nerd because the bullies in high school said so.
Ha! That's a good answer.
Yeah, well,
I'm a nerd, I think, because I don't know, I just like the stuff I like. And, I spent a lot of time growing up in high school and thinking to myself, oh, I'm not going to let people in on what I really like and what I'm really into because they won't like it. Then sometime in my 20s, I was like, you know what? Fuck people. Take me as I am or don't take me at all. I don't care.
Exactly. So, and I mean, some of us got laid in high school. I'm not saying I did, but
I mean, I don't know. I plead the fifth. Anyway, so Mike, we're going to have a nerd podcast. What are we going to talk about today?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yeah. Dungeons and Dragons, baby. The iconic game that manifests images of sweaty basement-dwelling virgins. No wonder we didn't get laid in high school, Mike.
I hardly played in high school. I was too busy with online games like World of Warcraft.
Oh, man. Loser.
I know, right?
Nerd. No. Definitely played World of Warcraft earlier today on my day off and enjoyed myself thoroughly. Anyway, so what is D&D? What is Dungeons and Dragons? We've all heard of it. It's friends sitting around a table pretending together.
Yes, indeed.
One person runs the world, the others play the characters in that world. Dice, they decide all the chaos, sometimes good, sometimes bad. There's rules, they're kind of loosely followed.
Indeed, and stories can go off the rails pretty easily.
Oh,
I've seen
yeah.
it happen so many times.
You cannot be a railroad conductor and play Dungeons and Dragons. It's
Not at all, not
impossible.
at all. If you're gonna conduct a train, there's another nerdy hobby that only boomers are really familiar with, and that's model trains.
That's fair. There's way more arguing and a lot less dragons than you think, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, granted, dragons may be a central part of the naming conventions involved in the game system. I just burped. Not
Ah,
get caught up with me. Anyway, yeah, there's dragons, absolutely, and there's a positively, how do I put this? The amount of dragons in the, D&D world that can be brought in through multiple, books and modules is, probably as many brain cells as an orange cat does not have.
okay. You know
Saying
what
that
there
as an
are?
orange cat owner myself.
So there are less dragons in D&D than you think, but you know what there's way too many of?
Dick jokes.
Dick jokes. Definitely. Every session, can't get away from them.
Oh,
Either
yeah.
the players are chopping dicks off or people are comparing dick sizes or, but there's also something else there's a lot more than you expect, and that's feelings.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
very true, very true.
feelings. Always makes me wanna sing the song,
Feelings.
"Feelings." So everyone's heard of D&D. It's not just dragons and cosplay, though. I
Good
mean,
part of it,
it's
though.
yeah, it's kinda a little bit more mainstream now these days. I mean, I see this shit on TV
Yeah,
now.
Stranger Things, really did a number on the what word am I looking for here? It used to be kinda niche, like, only the nerdiest of nerds would be playing D&D at any given time, but Stranger Things kinda turned that on its ass.
Those kids don't really look like nerds in that show.
That's because back in the '80s, it really wasn't a nerdy thing, it was just kind of a thing. But, one thing that kinda stuck in my craw about that show was that, these kids living in what appeared to be a pretty predominantly white neighborhood, very, middle class, upper middle class, I should say. And this takes place smack in the middle of the Satanic Panic when people were decrying D&D because of satanic imagery, thinking that people would use it to summon monsters and demons into the real world because, fantasy often tends to imitate real life, evidently.
Jesus, if I could sit down and open my player's handbook and summon a demon into the real world, you bet your ass I'd have already done it.
Yeah, you'd go for the succubus, wouldn't you?
The succubus. Oh, Michael, Michael, Michael.
Oh, me.
Mm.
Uh, well, just to kinda harp on the, subject a little bit, I watched Stranger Things a little bit. I watched the 1st season, the
Mhm.
very 1st season, and, well, I gotta be honest with you. It was interesting. It wasn't, I was led to believe it was going to be extraordinarily scary, but it was way more of a kinda white knuckle thriller feel than an actual horror thing. But it was a lot of it was very D&D based. Like, the monster in the 1st season is called the Demogorgon, which the kids named it that based on a monster they encounter in their D&D game,
Mhm.
which, in Stranger Things, it's a lanky, pale-skinned creature with a head that opens up like a flower and is lined with razor-sharp teeth.
What is
So,
the Demigorgon in actual Dungeons& and Dragons?
the Demogorgon in actual D&D is a demon lord that is a gigantic two-headed baboon creature with vines instead of hands.
Hmm,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Um, I'm not up on the lore of it exactly. I've skimmed it before, but, I just know that the 2 heads think independently of each other. It is fully sentient even though it rages like an absolute monstrosity, but at the same time, you know, still a demon lord. Yeah.
So we could say here, listeners, and we could talk about, subclasses and combinations of subclasses and stats and feats and talents, depending on what version of D&D you actually pay attention to and all that. But, I've got a lot of YouTube videos out there and a lot of podcasts I've heard out there that talk about that stuff, and it's boring.
Yeah.
It's the game's full of rules, and half the people don't follow them anyway. It's that little thing called homebrew, and I'd rather just break the game down on a deeper level. Just talk a little bit about more like why? Why do we play D&D? What is it about this game that makes me wanna spend $30 per book, sometimes twice, on buy every new edition and invite a bunch of sweaty nerds over to my house on Sundays to play? Like, what is it about this game that makes me want to host an actual party with these people? And, my answer is creativity. I like to tell a story. What about you, Mike?
I do like to tell stories too. It's a lot of fun being you know, creating a world, creating a story, telling people how the story's gonna play out depending on what they do and don't do. It's akin to feeling like a god out of your own little world.
In high school, me and a buddy, we sat down to design our first homebrew D&D world, and that's what he said. He said, Pick a name. Pick a name that you think is very godlike." And I was like, I have no idea." So we made up these stupid bullshit names, and
David.
David. Actually, that was his first name, believe it or not,
Meh, meh.
and, like, in real life. But we both picked these bogus god names, and we co-created a D&D world, and, that consisted of a couple of big ass sheets of paper and me drawing out a continent map because I was a better artist than he was, putting little mountains and little trees on there and picking out some names of cities. And then we just took turns telling stories in this world. And I think we ran those characters for 4 solid years through high school, all the way from freshman to senior year before we all kinda got bored with them and killed them all off in the
I think
story.
it's been since senior year since I've been able to make a game last 4 months worth of, uh, worth of sessions because
And
people
and
lose interest. It's sad.
it's very true because you know what the absolute big bad evil in Dungeons& and Dragons is?
I wanna say Vecna?
No, it's scheduling conflicts.
Oh, that makes sense.
I mean, more D&D games in because people just can't seem to find the time these days to get together,
Yeah, yeah.
and that sucks,
It
but I get
does.
it, I've got kids, you've got kid, all of my friends have kids, and now that we're old, it's hard to find a day where all of us have got a clean schedule for 4 hours where we can sit in a basement and play D&D.
Yeah, yeah. It
But,
is, a little sad, but, then again, you got me, who was never taught how credit scores work, so I am eternally a renter and never an owner, so I don't even have a basement.
no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Modern technology has changed so much about the game. So Roll20 and Dungeons& and Dragons, they just go together like peas and carrots. So this website went out there and they created this whole tool for you to just sit there and run your games online with people from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And that opens up a whole realm of possibilities.
That it
Uh,
does.
and so what do you think that's done to the game though?
Well, the accessibility, I think, is a big thing in it. It used to be that if you didn't own 7 or 8 different books, each of which cost about $30, you couldn't play, not properly at least, not by the rules, unless you borrowed books from somebody or you had, access to internet that was slower than the US Postal Service, and, well, I'm gonna be honest with you, it has opened up a lot of avenues for people who would not have played before or didn't have the time, money, or even the, want to play, has given them all the opportunity in the world, and I think that that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the looking for group subreddit?
I am not. I very scarcely use Reddit because, again, some of us get laid.
Fair. Well, I'm a big Redditor. I love Reddit. In fact, I think we'll start a subreddit for our podcast if any of you 3 listeners out there actually, listen.
Yeah.
Um, but so the looking for group subreddit is out there, and it's just nothing but a big group of people who are looking for a game. They're looking for a group to play with.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look
And
into that.
it's post after post after post of people, what game they're playing. because there's more than just Dungeons& and Dragons out there. I mean, listeners, if you can imagine it, there is a role-playing game out there for it. Whether
Absolutely.
you wanna be a superhero, you wanna go into the Lord of the Rings universe, you wanna play, you wanna play Skyrim on a board, somebody out there's made it. You wanna get into Star Wars and you wanna go pew pew all day long, that's one of my absolute favorite tabletop games is Star Wars. So much fun, so many possibilities out there. But in the looking for group Reddit, you know, it's kinda wild because these groups are very inclusive. And I am 100% here for it. Don't get me wrong, listeners, and don't take this the wrong way. But it does make a grown man chuckle a little bit when they see, this group is LGBT friendly, which is great. And then, it's furry friendly, which is kind of questionable. And
Exceedingly so. First time I play a D&D game and somebody says "mer yith," I'm gonna, you know, find out where they live and poop in their driveway.
I really don't know what that means, and I feel embarrassed.
Just to clue you in a little bit, "mer" is the stereotypical sound that a furry makes when they are being pleasured, and
Oof.
"yith" is, "yithing" means fucking.
Okay, so let me just be real clear, listeners. This podcast is definitely rated R and is for a mature audience only. So please, kids, don't try this at home and get your parents' permission before listening. Um,
Also, if you're young enough that you've never heard the word "fuck" before, why are you on the internet? Go back to
yeah,
preschool,
get off the internet. You really don't need to be here. Um,
please,
so
while you
so
still can.
like I said, I'm not against that if you like to dress up like a furry animal and have sex with your partner. You do you. It's
I'm not
consensual.
terribly against it
It,
myself, but at the
it's
same time, in a D&D setting,
I'm terribly concerned because I know your girlfriend very well.
well,
Oh, just as long as the next time I see her, she's not wearing a tail, I think we'll be okay. But anyway,
well,
so it's kinda like rolling the dice, picking one of these groups on the looking for group subreddit. You don't know what you're gonna get because it's like going into an AOL chat room in the '90s. I took a chance though. I've been playing a consistent Sunday in-person D&D game for 2.5 years, with the same group of friends, and then we rotate in guests every once in a while to come join in. I think the most players we had sitting around the table once was 9, and
which,
it's
let's be clear on that, listeners, if you're not familiar with D&D, 9 players is way more than average.
total fucking chaos.
Absolute
I
chaos.
mean,
First timer, don't go to a big game like that, go to something that's a little quieter, a little more intimate, a lot less people.
ideally, you want 3 people, maybe 4 as your players, and then anything more than 4, it just gets difficult to manage. So if you're a beginner and you're getting into being a dungeon master, for God's sakes, just don't invite everybody. That
Uh,
was my mistake.
I would argue the same goes for being a beginner player in a group.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
because
true.
if you're wanting to learn the ropes, you're not gonna wanna have to wait an hour and a half to just get your turn to do something.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so definitely the baby steps you should take for a D&D game is small game, small group, big adventure.
For sure. So I told that story to tell this story.
Yeah.
Um, I took the chance and I picked a group on there that was a guy saying he's never been a DM before and he was looking for a group to play in his campaign. He was playing in oh the I'm trying to remember the name of the campaign setting. It's the Matt
Curse of Strahd,
Mercer.
sword close
No, it's the Matt Mercer campaign setting.
uh,
Alexandria.
Exandria.
Exandria. Yes, that's it, Exandria. And, that
Alexandria is the, city in Greece.
ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned into History Podcast with Michael and Tyson.
Not the boxer.
Yeah, we will do things to your ears that you will regret. So, I picked up this game and he was a young guy. He was 22, um, and he was from get this, if you're an Office fan, he was from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Oh, I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
a man after my heart. I need to go visit you. I want a tour." And he would have given me one if I had gone. So, anyway, so we had him and, a nice married couple from St. Louis and a gentleman from Texas. and me here living in the poop shoot of Iowa. And we played some good old fashioned D&D, and he was new, but man, this kid handled himself so well. And he was thrilled because everybody was there was at least one semi-experienced player. The married couple were pretty new to the game. And then me, who's been playing since I was 14 and pretty much being a dungeon master the whole time. He was grateful that I was there, but I think he was a little nervous too because he thought that I was going to try to backseat drive the game. And I told him right off the bat, bro, I'm not going to do that. I just want to sit back and have a good time. I'm tired of running games all the time and I just want to play. So I broke out my favorite character that I came up with a few years ago that I never got to really play and had just a damnedest good time. And I'm still good, even though that game did end tragically because, well, our dungeon master got a life and a girlfriend, and I don't think he really had time to manage work life and girlfriend and run a game every week. Again, scheduling conflicts. So that
Very
game
sad, cue the violin.
it yeah, it was very
Yeah,
sad.
yeah.
But unfortunately,
Always hurts.
the married couple and the gentleman from Texas were more than happy to come over to a new game that I started for them because I did not want you never, ever, ever one rule, listeners, if you find good players who are into your story or into you as a person and show up at least 90% of the time, don't let those players go. Take care of
Never.
them. Love them, squeeze them. Don't ever let them go. It's such a rare thing to find.
Yes, it is.
So, I think modern technology has really helped D&D open up to all these people, but at the same time, I'm a tired dungeon master, Mike. I am tired. Why do you think I'm so tired?
Because you're the forever DM, it seems.
I am, but that's not the reason.
What's the reason?
Well, answer me this. You're sitting in
Okay.
front of your computer
Yes.
and somebody like me is talking to you.
Yes. Both of those things are absolutely true.
You have your keyboard and your mouse and the entire internet in front of you at your disposal,
Wow, it's like you're reading my mind.
and you have a minute case of ADHD.
I wouldn't call it minute, but yes, I do. Holy shit, how do you know so much about me?
Well, it's not that I've been your friend for almost 20 years.
I know
It's
that.
that that's the situation that 90% of D&D players are online. So,
Yeah, yeah.
if you're going to play online, you're going to need maps. You're going to need tokens. You're going to need music. You're going to need everything you can, listeners, to keep these people engaged. Now, you don't need those things. There's plenty of players out there that take the game seriously enough where they can just theater of the mind it all day long and they don't need all that visible visual representation. But I sadly am not one of those DMs. I got to have a map to go with my encounter. I got to have a picture of the NPC they're talking to. I got to do voices when I try, or whether it's taking my voice and editing it or something. I like to put on that show and that theatrics and that just it's a love-hate relationship because I so much love it because I love that creation. I love that moments of, oh, I just put together this really cool scene where evil dragonborn paladin is about to smite the characters because he's fallen in line with a outside entity from a different dimension. And I recorded my voice and changed my voice into that of something kind of draconic and did this really epic voiceover. And I was so enthusiastic about it. And I don't really think my players were nearly as excited about it as I was, which, yeah, if it makes them happy, cool. If it doesn't, it made me happy. But that burns you out.
I'm gonna be honest with you. That kind of thing, it does, do things for me. When somebody is impassioned about what they're doing when it comes to D&D, it shows. Have you ever heard the old adage, "Smile and dial"?
I have not.
Well, you having worked as a telemarketer before, a little insight into your backstory. Um, the adage "Smile and dial" was introduced to me when I was working as a telemarketer, separate job, separate location, separate telemarketing company. The idea was that if you smile while you're talking on the phone, people can hear it in your voice, and it influences them to want to buy things.
I am
So,
absolutely smiling right now, Mike, while I'm talking to you, and
are
now
you?
I am not. I am definitely frowning, and
Yeah,
I can
absolutely. You
definitely
can
hear the
definitely
difference
tell
in
the
my voice.
difference. But at the same time, they took a positively beautiful idea and capitalism to it.
Totally goblined it, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about goblining. Goblining just sounds,
Time is money, friend.
well, I mean, yes, time is money, friend, but at the same time, the way you worded it there made it sound like something that should be included in a podcast that's above an R rating. So let's not say goblining anymore.
Fair enough. Okay.
But
Uh,
anyway, you see what I'm saying here.
I do.
That's the idea that I have with a person who is just so impassioned about what they're doing with the D&D game, whether it be the DM or the player. When I encounter a player that is really into the role-playing aspect of it, really gets into their characters, puts on a voice, truly makes themselves feel like they are that character, that's when you know you're having a good time.
Absolutely, and those are the people I wanna play D&D with. The ones
Absolutely.
that the ones that really get into the head of their character,
Yeah.
and whether or not, they and this kinda leads me into another subject here I wanted to talk about. Um, I get a lot of players like to optimize their characters. Who doesn't want to have the biggest, baddest bastard at the table?
Just to kind of interject in there on the topic, that is called munchkinning for those of you who are uninitiated. When you create a character that is all numbers, is impossible to kill or impossible to win against in any way, shape, or form, and they are tailor made using guides on YouTube, etc., to make them biggest Billy badass on the block.
Hmm. I had heard that term munchkining on a board game once, and I never
Which
quite
also
got
sounds
it.
pretty dirty, by the way.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, sounds a little gross.
I feel like if I went to the back of the video store in that little room, there'd be a DVD called Munchkining.
Probably would involve dwarves and not the fantasy kind.
Ah, yeah, the less hairy kind. Ugh.
Well, that just
Anyway,
depends on, genetics, doesn't it?
I have successfully grossed out all 3 of our listeners.
Enough.
Um, so some players, they optimize their characters. They munchkin them. They turn them into these powerhouses of high statistics and the best combos of class, subclass, and feat that they can come up with so that their characters are virtually unstoppable. And I get that. I have a friend who told me when I asked him, I said, "What is it that you enjoy the most about D&D?" And he honestly said that what he enjoys the most is the aspect of being larger than life. And then he told me that I should make my encounters less challenging because he says, "It's okay. I should be able to just mow over stuff more often. I wanna feel powerful." And I know that's because he doesn't feel powerful in his real life. And that's okay. But I think the over optimization of characters in the mainstream of Dungeons and Dragons is twofold. I
I
think it's
agree.
I think it's partially the MMO effect where you play the MMO games and you gotta optimize the shit out of your character so that you are competitive with all the other people that you're playing with.
Yeah,
So people take that mindset into D&D. But also I think it's kind of a defense mechanism.
it kinda is. But, just on the same note, over-optimizing characters and the, MMO mindset is, don't wanna say cancerous, but at the same time, it can really kill the morale at a D&D table. Take, for instance, World of Warcraft. If you've been playing since the beginning, you'll know exactly what I mean. When you get to the top level, you face the final boss of that expansion. You get all the best gear, all the best loot. It's very hard fought and very, you feel like you earned it. You definitely earned it because you put in the hours, you put in the work, and you got something out of it. But then the next expansion drops, there's a whole new laundry list of monsters, and even the lowest leveled ones in the new areas are going to drop weapons that are better than what you had before after defeating the final boss of the previous campaign. So it all gets outclassed very quickly. That's called power creep. just for those of you who are listening, all three of you. But at the same time, it just makes going back and facing this insurmountable force of evil from the previous version or previous expansion of the game. You walk in, you basically slap him in the face, and he's dead. That's
Yeah.
the kind of feeling you get when you over optimize.
Mhm.
It just takes all the challenge out, and when the DM adjusts it so that it's a little more challenging for that character, it's too challenging for the others.
That's correct, and
So
that's
it
why
unbalances the game completely when you do that.
I think that's why optimization has become such a common thing, is that most dungeon masters aren't capable of on the fly adjusting their encounters, their fights, their, their skill challenges.
Yeah.
They make it too hard, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Well, shit, my character is kind of a pussy here. I need to do something about it." And their next character then becomes this powerhouse that they watched 3 YouTube videos that basically told them how to break the rules of the game in order to partially legitly have this super powerful character, and then they go with that. And, if they wanna role play that, that'd be cool. I would love to see somebody role play
Yeah.
their Superman, but most of the time, those characters don't role play, they live for rolling the dice, and that's all they're there for is they're gonna be, "Hey, I'm a skill monkey. Yeah, I can pick that lock. I can do this. I can do this." But then they encounter a shopkeep that wants to actually talk to them,
Just to
and
be
they don't
honest with
know.
you there, Tyson, skill monkey sounds like a slur.
It does not. Have you never heard the term skill monkey?
I have not.
It's when a character is super high in all the skills, sneaking, their sleight of hand, they're really good with, history, or they're really, really good with herbalism or something like that. And there lots of situations come up where those skills come in handy in the real world. Well, Skill Monkey might not be very good at, swinging a sword, but I'll be damned if he could pick any lock, hide from any bad guy, and probably know exactly what language the ancient skeleton is speaking to you. So, there's
Yeah.
your history lesson. Definitely not
Well,
not a not a slur.
it just kind of sounded like it almost.
Um, so what do you prefer, Mike? Do you prefer, box sets that explain your world to you in somewhat detail, like the Sword Coast or the Curse of Strahd? Or do you like walking into the world that is completely made by your dungeon master?
Well, from a player's perspective, it's kind of the same thing.
Well, that's true.
I mean, if you're walking into a game that somebody created or a game that somebody else created, it's kind of the same idea. You don't really have a lot of bearing on the world that was put before you, but at the same time, you can shape it.
Well, see, I disagree to an extent, and that's because I've never picked
Well,
up a book and read anything about the Sword Coast. So if I walked into a game where it took place on the Sword Coast, then you're right, I would not have any clue. But if I went out to D&D Beyond and bought the Sword Coast source guide and I read it cover to cover, I'm gonna walk into that game and I'm gonna know every detail about everything,
and
and
that
I'm not
can be its own problem in that if you're joining a Sword Coast game and you know all about the Sword Coast, all the cities and the states, the politicals, this, that, and the other thing about it,
Baldur's
then
Gate.
yeah, you're just going to be able to walk in and metagame the whole time.
Metagaming. So for you uninitiated listeners out there, metagaming is taking real world knowledge about the game, the information you've gleaned from the game, and making your character, whom would have absolutely no idea about that subject, suddenly just know because you know. And yes, I understand.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Listeners, you're playing the character. So you're like, well, if I would know that, don't you think my character would know that? Most people in medieval fantasy worlds barely know how to read.
Yeah. Well, to be
Maybe
honest
that's
with you,
Maybe that's a hot take, I don't know.
I wouldn't call it a hot take, Tyson. I would
Uh,
not call it a hot take because having read and studied actual medieval times, my own time, I know quite a bit about civilian life. And speaking of which, the old adage, people didn't live past 35 in those time periods, absolutely false.
No, I think the average life expectancy was
Uh,
probably closer to 60.
70-ish, I believe, was what I had read was the average, uh, person's lifespan, whereas life expectancy versus lifespan, 2 very different things. Life expectancy was about 35 because of infant death rates, sad
Mhm.
face, but at the same time, people that did make it past infancy had a pretty damn good chance of making it.
Well, not to get too political, but I feel like society's coming full circle if 70 was the average lifespan.
Yeah, yeah. Certain people we wish didn't live past 70, but,
That's fair. That's fair.
not gonna name names, but,
Oh, yeah, they know who they are.
yes, they do.
Best
Dave.
dungeons. Dave. Who the fuck is Dave?
I don't know.
I know a guy named Dave, and he's old, but, he's very useful, and I like him. He's funny. Um, so what's your best D&D story? Tell me about your
My
favorite time
best
at the
one.
table.
Well, got a few, got a few. Namely, I was playing a paladin. We were in an encounter with to be honest with you, I don't even remember who we were fighting against. I think it might have been a band of pirates, but my party was just being decimated, death after death, and all this. And I was the only one left, and I was very low on hit points. And we were facing the it was either a boss or a band of pirates. I cannot remember for the life of me because I was like 14 when it happened. But I went in and I said, "You know what? By my honor, I'm going to take you down or die trying." That kind of thing that 14-year-old nerd would spout and think it sounded profound. But, you know, anyway, went up against it was either the boss or the only remaining person in this band of whatevers. And, well, suddenly I couldn't miss. And suddenly he couldn't hit. The dice were open view on the table from both myself and the DM. Nothing was landing from him and everything was landing from me. And every player around the table was just gripping the edge of the table and staring as we rolled our dice. I took him down by myself and I saved the party from a total party kill.
Bet you felt
And then
pretty
I
good, proud of yourself,
resurrected
didn't you?
everybody one by one when I could. And they were all cheering by the end of that, and it felt wonderful.
That is a beautiful story.
Yes, yes, it is. It's no Princess Bride, but, I felt pretty proud of myself in that moment.
You want a real hot take?
Sure.
I don't like that movie.
You and I are going to have a talk, and I'll be using my hands,
This ladies and
and I
gentlemen,
don't mean sign
this
language.
was the first and final episode of Arguing with Dragons. Um, well, I tell you what, maybe we'll do an episode where we argue about why that movie is not nearly as good as anybody says it is. But,
I can answer that with one word,
what's that?
whimsy.
Whimsy. Okay,
You just don't find the enjoyment in the whimsy, and that's okay. It's
maybe.
okay to be incorrect. It
That's
really is.
it's alright, I didn't like the movie Anchorman either, and a lot of folks in my
You
generation
know
wanna
what?
crucify me for that.
I'm gonna hot take myself here. I hate Will Ferrell.
Yeah, I like Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live, and I
His
like Will
Saturday Night
Ferrell.
Live, I feel, was kind of a portent of what he was gonna become, and that is being loud and calling it funny.
Yeah, I know, I have to sit and grit my teeth every time the kids wanna put Elf on.
Duh.
Ugh,
It's not
get me
even Will
started.
Ferrell about that movie that I don't like, just something about it really bugs me.
The fact that it's a grown man wearing an elf costume and
Well,
how
no,
he's in the
again, it's
women's
it's not
restroom
even
and
the
doesn't
Will
get
Ferrell
arrested.
portion of it, it's just the movie itself is like, "Why is this even a thing?" Is just kinda how I feel about it in general. Don't get
I'm
me
a
wrong,
You know what?
it was decently well acted.
I'm gonna write an NPC into our D&D story that I tell, and he's gonna be just like Will Ferrell.
I will take a dump in your mailbox, sir.
Alright. No postage necessary, ladies and gentlemen. Alright,
I'll put a
so
stamp on it anyway just to make it legal.
oh, legal poo in the
Just you watch, I
mailbox.
will do it.
Well, at least I'll know where it came from.
Well, maybe.
So
It could be literally anybody.
one of my best D&D stories, um,
Yeah, let's hear yours.
I've got this character, and I love this character. His name's Rax. He's definitely a side of me that I wish I would portray a little more. I've always had my characters be a little bit of a duality inside me because, I've got the mindset where I know how criminals think. I worked in a field, where I dealt a lot with, criminals back in the day, and it opened my eyes up to, how they think, how they steal, how they manipulate. I've dealt with a lot of manipulators in my time. So I had a character once for a long time that was, he was a lying, manipulative douche, and that was
Really?
his yeah, that was his thing.
Oh,
But Rax was more of a lighthearted, just a lovable guy that was dealt some really bad cards, and instead of becoming the evil that did it to him, like most people would, they'd go on a revenge killing spree. He kinda just He just laughs it off now, and he has his dark moments where you can see that everything he's lost in his life gets to him, but he's just a very humorous goofball, and that humor and that being able to shrug off things that happen in your life that you feel aren't fair and all that is something I strive for all the time as a person. Um,
absolutely.
so my moment there with him though, he had just reappeared. These characters were teleported to, um, a kind of a reconstruction of, the Shadowfell. Like, not the Shadowfell by name, but something similar. And, Rax joined those characters there for a 2-session spinoff where somebody else ran a game. But afterwards, they appeared back in the real world, and, he was quickly knocked out by goblins, and because he was disoriented and, he's a tough guy. He's a this point in time, I think he was probably a 4th level, 5th level, fighter. So he's sitting there waking up, and he's tied up, and there's these goblins in this tent around him. And instead of just, busting out of his ropes and killing all these goblins like you normally do, he sat back with a smile on his face, and he started telling those goblins his whole life story, not even sure that they could understand a damn thing coming out of his mouth. But by golly, did he tell them. And that moment and the visuals behind it and the story he told to the goblins just, inspired me to do a little writing, and I loved it, and I still love that character, and that image lives rent free in my brain all the time.
Rent-free is not necessarily a good thing, it just means you're a squatter.
Well, it can squat there. I've accepted it.
Okay, as long
So
as you're knowledgeable on the subject, there you go.
tell me tell me about your worst time. What's your horror story?
My D&D horror story. Well, um, I was invited to a game. This again was when I was probably a teenager. I was well before I met you. I do know that much, but I got invited to a game. It was a Saturday game. There was a little I don't even know how to describe it. A kind of curiosity shop in my hometown where they had all kinds of occult this and that, some shirts and graphic tees, little dime store notions that folks who practice Wicca would probably appreciate, as
Oh,
well as role playing game books and such.
I think I
And
know the story you're talking about.
I've never told you it. I don't think.
Yeah, but it's downtown, right?
Well, oh, the store. I thought you said story.
No, the store, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, you probably
alright.
do, you probably do. But in the back, every Saturday, if people wanted to come play, say, Magic: the Gathering, Warhammer, D&D, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, etcetera, they had a space where people could come and do that. And, I was there, by golly, every damn Saturday I was there, unless I just couldn't tear myself away from RuneScape, so, Either way, I got invited to a game. And, the guy who invited me said, "Hey, this DM is amazing. He weaves the best stories. does everything that you would hope a DM would do with his game. And the thought of that just kind of excited me. I could see myself getting into it, like, and since it was every single Saturday, and I'd met the guy before, just didn't know he was a DM or anything. But I went in, I joined the game, I rolled up a character. I believe it was an orc barbarian. I'm not totally sure. But game started, everything's gone off without a hitch. The character creation was pretty well streamlined because he sat and helped everybody make their characters and stuff, so that there wouldn't be any confusion and there wasn't any new players necessarily. But things started going, and then a couple of weeks later, we played every week, but a couple of weeks into it, the cracks started to show. This DM was eh, a little more keen on telling the story than letting the characters form the story, what you would call a railroad plot. And well, he eventually started getting really upset with players who didn't play into his narrative, the way he
Hmm.
wanted the game to go. I mean, I can understand being a little cross with, like, okay, I spent 9 hours perfectly crafting this encounter and you wrecked it with a spell that I didn't know you had. Yeah, yeah, that kind of thing
Well,
is understandable.
here's the thing about that. So I can tell you he was probably a failed novelist. He
I
wanted
would
to
imagine so.
he wanted to write a book, and he wanted somebody else to be developing the characters for him.
Well, very true. But now, when those cracks started showing, I smelled danger, but I just kind of soldiered on because I figured, oh, well, he's just not having a good day or whatever. But towards the end of the day, one of the newer players had convinced the rest of the table, hey, let's go do this instead of that side quest, and he slammed his hands on the table and screamed at her in her face for daring to go against what he wanted the party to do. And seconds later, everybody was away from the table doing their own thing.
Wow.
Yeah, I was rather enjoying myself in the game at first until that shit started happening. And then what I can only assume is a 50-ish-year-old man threw a hissy fit, and just like that, it was all done.
Wow.
Ain't nobody wanted to play with him anymore, and I can totally see why.
Yeah, I don't think I couldn't stand for that.
Yeah, no, and after this
I'd
guy
have
had
thrown
been
a book
talked
at
up
that guy's
so
face.
heavily, I mean, I didn't see him, for a few Saturdays after that, then he showed up specifically for Magic the Gathering after that.
Yeah, I think maybe he needs to stick to Magic the Gathering.
Probably. Probably.
Those are a whole different pile of sweaty nerds right there, and that's
Emphasis on
okay.
pile because, cards are in decks. I'm hilarious.
Stacks of nerds. So,
How many nerds do you think you can stack before they end up dying?
I don't know, you have to tap 3 of them to find out.
Gross.
That's a Magic the Gathering term. If you're uninitiated, when I say you have to tap something, it means you turn it sideways.
We say uninitiated a lot.
We do, because
Yeah,
that's one thing I want this podcast to do is I want it to bring people who are not nerds and let them kinda see the warped, twisted, fucked up way that we think, and maybe invite them to join us in thinking about these games like we do, whether or not
absolutely.
they ever wanna sit down and play a game of Dungeons& and Dragons. I mean, maybe not, but, listeners, this is a good chance to, because I wanna hear your feedback on that. I wanna hear, for you D&D players out there, write us in your best stories. Tell us your hot takes or even your horror stories. I'd like to hear any and all. And if you've never played Dungeons& and Dragons before, and you are maybe interested now that you've heard us ramble on for 50 some odd minutes about it, or maybe you saw it on Stranger Things, or maybe you saw some random mention of it on a random subreddit or something like that, and you're interested, write us in, tell us why you're interested, and we'll even reply and let you know some resources. You can go out there and figure it out, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Or
So
if you wanna just go ahead and hit us up, arguingwithdragons@gmail.com.
correct. Um,
We'll
so
read every email, as long as it's not an ad for dick enlargement pills.
yes, don't spam us, please. Um, so my
There's the dick joke, by the way.
I knew one was coming. So how do you think D&D's really changed the nerd culture?
Well, it's opened up a lot of creativity, pipelines for people. I mean, as nerd culture stood, if you were a creative type before D&D, you were probably writing articles or, possibly even short stories for news publications, etcetera, say, for instance, H.P. Lovecraft or Isaac Asimov. They, they wrote editorials that ended up becoming short stories, which ended up becoming novellas, turning into novels, and we're all the richer for having them, but I digress. Uh, the way D&D has really changed nerd culture to me is that it gives people the ability to express their own creative selves in a way that just isn't available anywhere else. Sure, there are other role-playing opportunities, especially online nowadays. There are entire role-playing forums. I've, regrettably been in one before, and I say regrettably because it's just so cringe, but at the same time, these avenues were opened up to just anybody who wanted to take part, as long as they could afford the $30 bucks, but at the same time, there's really nothing like it.
You say there's nothing like it, but Dungeons and Dragons has been duplicated and copied multiple times over.
Well, they hate you because the ain't you kind of applies.
Oh, that's fair. But so one thing about D&D is about 80% of the rules in those 3 books that you spend $30 a book on revolve around combat.
Yeah.
And only about 20% actually revolve around role playing and everything else that happens in the game. Now you spend maybe about
Well, I would argue that you could do both. Like, just saying, I walk up and swing my sword versus I approach my enemy with sword held high and with all of the vigor that I have, I
yes.
aim to take his head clean off.
You can dramatize your attacks and all that, and I highly encourage that, yes.
Turning it into a
Um,
role-playing experience just makes it all the richer.
that's very true. But most people don't do that. Most
No,
people
no, they don't,
say,
and
"I roll the dice."
I'm guilty of that myself.
So, there's a lot of other games that have been made that are less combat oriented and that don't rely so much on a roll a 20-sided dice, add your modifiers, and see if you hit or see if you miss. Some games out there actually approach combat really differently. So, uh, I am a huge Star Wars nerd, probably as in love with Star Wars as I am with Dungeons and Dragons. And I was a
I would
total
argue, a lot more so with Star Wars for you, but,
well, it comes and goes. Um, but one of my biggest things was I loved Star Wars Saga Edition. It was real crunchy, numbers crunchy. It had 12 books, all these rules, everything possibly released in the Star Wars universe was codified in these books as something you could play with rules. And it was fun. And it was a great game. And when you injected a lot of role play into it and you really got into the stories of the Empire and the Rebellion and the New Republic and the Old Republic and all that stuff, it was fun. I mean, I had a blast. Now, couldn't find enough people to actually play it consistently, but it was a blast. But over the years since that's been out, they've re-released that game into a more cinematic experience where you're rolling dice that are like luck dice and heroic dice and failure dice all in one so that you create a story out of the dice rolls that you make to say, hey, maybe I hit that stormtrooper with this blaster, but I did it in a way where I was diving towards something. And then I accidentally slipped and fell and moved a droid over that, fell down a cliffside that, smacked R2-D2 in the head and prevented him from destroying the Death Star. I mean, something like that could happen. And it's just a wild set of game rules. So like D&D isn't your only avenue if you want to be out there role playing. You've
no, I
got
didn't say it's the only avenue,
oh, that's true. I
and
mean,
your question was more so how it changed the way.
no, I know. I kind of got off
That's all I'm
topic.
saying. When D&D was introduced, it created an entire new idea for people to be creative and to play their games.
It did. Gary Gygax, who knew?
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
May he
So
rest in
listeners,
peace.
if, if you're into leadership, tactical thinking, creative problem solving, teamwork, maybe you should try D&D
Or join the army.
or join the army. But, I say that because, in D&D, you're sitting there at the table as a game master, you're leading all these nerds. You're telling the story and they're telling a story back, and it's a collaborative game. It's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
And, they're thinking about how they're gonna destroy this monster that's, greatly overpowering them. And you're thinking about, how am I gonna have this issue that the players are gonna solve? How am I gonna lead them into solving it without telling them how to solve it? And your players are working together to solve problems. I mean, you very well could use all of this on a resume in real life.
Absolutely.
And I challenge you listeners, the next job you apply for, put Dungeons& and Dragons on your resume. If you've got a nerd like me that's sitting there reading those resumes, you bet your ass I'm gonna call you.
And if you absolutely don't wanna get an interview at most corporations and you wanna continue being a nerd in your basement, then yes, put D&D on your resume.
Well, thank you, listeners. This has been an absolute ball of a time talking to you, Mike, about this silly topic of Dungeons& and Dragons.
Well, I just kinda came to a realization, Tyson.
What's that?
In all this talk of storytelling, I realized the DM is the storyteller, but so are the players.
Ooh, did your mind just blow?
Not quite. But get this,
What?
the DM makes the story, but so do the players. They
Oh,
both
yeah.
tell and make the story.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, oh, thank you, listeners. All three of you out there, I greatly appreciate your time. If you've got feedback for me and Mike here, anything you want to talk about, any topics that you want, email them in arguingwithdragons@gmail.com. We'll definitely take them to heart. You can email in and be like, you guys suck. I don't care. As long as you send an email, I will be more than happy to know that you listened to the show to this point.
Your feedback is $1 in our pockets with which to buy more Magic the Gathering cards and or pizza.
Ew, I don't play Magic the Gathering anymore.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't. I still
Oh,
have the same deck I had when I was 18, 17, 16 years old, and it still sits in my keepsake box collecting dust.
well,
There's
if
like
you
third
don't use them, why don't you sell them?
there's like third edition cards in there. Hell no, I ain't gonna sell them. I had some guy ask me that. He was sitting in a Wingstop talking to his buddy about Magic the entire time me and my family were in there eating. And finally, they got up and left, and one of them left their coat sitting on the chair. So I got up and I went through the door and I hollered out, "Hey guys, you left your coat here." And he come back in and I made the mistake of being the guy who says, "Heard you talking about Magic the Gathering, weren't you?" That guy did not want to shut up about Magic the Gathering. And then when he found out I had a stash of old cards, I immediately got asked, "How much do I want for them?" And if you know me, Mike, I'm a sentimental guy.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe
not
you
selling
are.
those cards. So, next week, we're gonna get on and do this again. What do you wanna talk about next week, Mike?
How about The Legend of Zelda?
Yeah, that sounds like a good topic. Nintendo's favorite franchise to keep redoing over and over again, telling the same story over and over again in new and creative ways.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hero
All
saves
right.
the princess, never gets old.
Yeah, but Link never gets old either. That's the weird thing.
I know, right? That is kinda strange.
All right, listeners,
Yeah, but we'll talk about that later.
if you got a favorite Legend of Zelda game, by all means, email it in arguingwithdragons@gmail.com. Maybe we'll talk about that game next week. All right, Mike. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Pleasure indeed, but not in a gross way.
All right, listeners, we'll talk at you later. See ya.
Bye-bye now.